We previously reported news to you concerning a flood in Dubai that many believe is linked to their weather manipulation program that causes artificial rain from clouds. This is no joking matter. There were reported deaths resulting from the floods in Dubai. We also showed you a video by meteorologist Ginger Z as she was confirming weather manipulation programs have been happening in America since the early 1950s.
There's 42 cloud seeding programs across the American West. Many of them have aerial parts where they take airplanes like this with flares attached. Inside these flares, silver iodide, a microscopic particle that acts like a magnet for water. So they shoot those microscopic particles into a storm that's already going to produce snow and just enhance that snow. By the end of the season, in a good program, we're told you can make 3 to 15% more snowpack.
Now we want to report another type of weather manipulation experiment was secretly released over San Francisco Bay by so-called scientists from the University of Washington using salt crystals, leading an experiment that was intentionally kept under the radar to minimize public backlash.
The nation's first outdoor test to limit global warming by increasing cloud cover launched Tuesday from the deck of a decommissioned aircraft carrier in the San Francisco Bay. The experiment, which organizers did not widely announce to avoid public backlash, marks the acceleration of a contentious field of research known as solar radiation modification. The concept involved shooting substances such as aerosols into the sky to reflect sunlight away from the Earth. The researchers behind this experiment were intentionally keeping the local public in the dark in order to stave off criticism. And the reason we know this is because these researchers, they gave at the New York Times exclusive access to cover the initial firing of the spray cannons from the ship. And in their report, here's what the New York Times wrote, quote, "The idea of interfering with nature is so contentious that organizers of Tuesday's test kept the details tightly held, concerned that critics would try to stop them. This plan of theirs involves spraying trillions of microscopic salt particles up into the air in an attempt to make clouds more dense. This will, at least in theory, reflect more of the sun's light away from the Earth." Quote, "The Coastal Atmospheric Aerosol Research and Engagement, or CARE project, is using specially built sprayers to shoot trillions of sea salt particles into the sky in an effort to increase the density and reflective capacity of marine clouds." Now, the Secretive experiment is being led by researchers affiliated with the University of Washington, and the official name for this project, as was mentioned in this article right here, is the Coastal Atmospheric Aerosol Research and Engagement Project, otherwise known as CARE. Solar radiation modification is controversial because widespread use of technologies like marine cloud brightening could alter weather patterns in unclear ways and potentially limit the productivity of fisheries and farms. It could also lead to a catastrophic spike in global temperatures if major geoengineering activities were discontinued before greenhouse gases decrease to manageable levels. Bill Gates, through his foundation, has been funding this type of research, and also 2 years ago, Joe Biden signed a measure into law which directed the Office of Science and Technology Policy to work alongside NASA on researching climate intervention. Quote, an article in MIT Technology Review reports the crux of the federal plan is to release tiny particles into the atmosphere that, theoretically, could reflect enough sunlight to slow down the Earth's warming. That is again at the federal level. Getting back to this California plan though, initially, phase 1 of the plan is to release these microscopic particles atop the USS Hornet Sea and Airspace Museum over in Alameda, California, right there in the San Francisco Bay. This phase will go until the end of May. Afterwards, phase 2 will involve shooting these particles on a pier about a mile offshore in a coastal environment. Then, if phase 1 and phase 2 prove successful, well, perhaps the next phase of this geoengineering scheme will be done right in your own backyard. That is, of course, unless you happen to live in the state of Tennessee. That's because several days ago, the Tennessee state legislature passed a bill which bans all geoengineering projects like this within the state. This bill, it passed through the Senate as well as the state assembly and is now on the governor's desk awaiting signature in order to fully become law. For your reference, this bill is called House Bill 2063. You can see it up in the screen. And here's what it says in relevant part. Quote, the intentional injection, release, or dispersion by any means of chemicals, chemical compounds, substances, or apparatus within the borders of the state into the atmosphere with the express purpose of affecting temperature, weather, or the intensity of the sunlight is prohibited, meaning that there will be no geoengineering within the state of Tennessee. But here's the most ironic thing about this particular bill. As we've discussed in today's episode, these geoengineering efforts are definitely happening at the federal level. You have Joe Biden directing the federal government to work alongside NASA on researching exactly these things. At the local level, you have experiments currently being conducted, which are releasing trillions of these particles up into the sky, hoping to reflect sunlight. Bill Gates has been funding these research efforts for the last 2 years, at least through his foundation. But when a state legislature introduces a bill saying that these geoengineering efforts will not be allowed in the state, the media, in one loud voice, paints it as a nonsense chemtrail conspiracy theory bill. In fact, if you do a quick search online of this particular bill, you'll see well over a dozen articles saying exactly the same thing, that this bill is pushing the chemtrail conspiracy theory. Even though the text of the bill does not mention anything regarding chemtrails, and even though the bill itself is only about 1 page long, and it'll take you just a minute to read the whole thing, somehow, the legacy news outlets got the message and have, in one loud uniform voice, been mocking this bill as a chemtrail conspiracy bill. And then, those same journalists wonder why no one trusts the media anymore. Regardless, aside from Tennessee, the states of Minnesota as well as Pennsylvania recently had similar bills introduced into their respective state legislatures, pushing for a ban of geoengineering within the borders of their states as well. And funny enough, every one of those efforts in those particular states is also being tarred and feathered by the media as a chemtrail conspiracy theory.
Pillars and Strategy Statement. The Biden administration admits to funding research on marine cloud brightening, per New York Times. Also, the White House did not take part in this particular study, stating they are not involved in solar radiation modification experiments.
There seems to be a lot of black ops happening in the sandbox of weather manipulation via cloud seeding, which is a major form of solar geoengineering, or them shooting high-powered microscopic salt aerosol particles hundreds of feet into the air, all in the guise of climate change prevention. Number 1. Take action to reach out to your state to prevent like Tennessee did. 2. Do the command the morning prayer and spend time seeking God for guidance on how to speak against negative weather systems that impact your area.
God created you to perform His work in the earth, as He directs you. Walk in a Holy Spirit-led life. It starts with you. Otherwise, the system of this world will try to be a god to you. Their goal is to fully control you. The fight is quite evident as people are becoming more aware.
Wokeness is awareness, but there are levels to becoming aware. Governments treat and track people as a commodity. Your governments are largely Luciferian run. That's why justice appears to be waning, but God is going to do a powerful shake to the nations. Salvation belongs to Him.
Everything around you is dictating a perspective to you. Judah, it's time to rise. The Lion of the tribe of Judah is in you.